Hey, shalom, shalom, shalom lakam, which is peace unto you all. Hi, Rob Tawab la Atham Za'ach Yakam Yawaman Rachagador Charlotte, which is good evening. This is your brother Yawan from the JMS camp in Charlotte. Nachamatam Kaya. Amalakat Hashemayim Kwa Rob. Repent ye, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Call Halayim La La, but now Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Rucha HaKodash. Wamashana La Zakwaim, now Wamalakim Shara Chakadar, which is our praises to our Father Yahweh, which means he exists. Bahasham, in the name Yahweh Shai, delivers. And double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone. Zatahoyam, this is Psalm chapter 19, and we'll get verse 1, and it says, the heavens declare the glory of the Most High, and the firmament sheweth his handiwork. All right, ultimately going into the satellites, all right, you see, because ultimately the satellites is connected, to each communication device. Those that have communication devices, they're able to essentially communicate, via the satellites, with the broadbands and the connections. All right, so it says, the heavens declare the glory of the Most High, and the firmament sheweth his handiwork. Day unto day uttereth speech, and night unto night sheweth knowledge. All right, so ultimately, this word is going out 24/7. As we're pushing forth this word. All right, and the brothers are pretty much resting over in the Eastern Hemisphere. All right, and vice versa. When brothers in the Eastern Hemisphere is pushing forth the word, and we're resting over here, the word is still going out. So this word is constantly going out. All right, let's get a quick precept. This is Yashaya Isaiah chapter 62. Look at verse 6, and it says, I have set watchmen upon thy walls, O Jerusalem, which shall never hold their peace day nor night. Yea, that make mention of the Lord, keep not silence. And essentially, this word is going out constantly, 24/7. All right, starting up from the top, it says, I have set watchmen upon thy walls. Essentially, the Lord says he has compassion upon his people, so that word for watchman goes into Shamar Yam, which means to preserve or to save a life, so this word is going forth, to save those of Israel, you see, which it's not written that 2/3 would essentially subscribe to this truth. You see, so they're destined to be destroyed. Because of their lack of spiritual awareness. All right, but the 1/3 is ultimately going to in the spirit preserve their lives. You see, because they took heed to the message. All right, but it says, I have set watchmen upon thy walls, O Jerusalem, which shall never hold their peace day nor night. Yea, that make mention of the Lord, keep not silence. Hey, this word, again, is constantly going out 24/7. All right, so going back, Psalms 19 and verse 3. It says, there is no speech nor language where their voice is not heard. All right, again, it says, there is no speech nor language where their voice is not heard. All right, in which this word is being made plain upon tables, you see. It's no excuse as to why Jake didn't hear this word, you see, because YouTube, it even has an option to essentially translate what's being spoken. All right, so I'm gonna read it again. Psalms 19 and 3, it says, there is no speech nor language where their voice is not heard. Again, the Lord has made it plain upon tables. Let me get that real fast. This is Habakkuk chapter 2, and we'll get verse 2, and it says, and the Lord answered me and said, write the vision, make it plain upon tables, that he may run that readeth it. All right, in which the vision is going into the prophecies, ultimately going into the scriptures. It says, write the vision and make it plain upon tables. When you make something plain, that word is ba'ar, which means to make it clear and distinct. It says that he may run that readeth it, so ultimately, so that believers can understand the message. All right, in which again is being made plain upon tables, you see, because all right, in each different part of the world, all right, brother, it's brothers that speak different languages. All right, so it's not a need, for a believer in Germany necessarily to ultimately, learn English. All right, to be able to understand this word. All right, again, this word has been made plain upon tables. All right, and then ultimately going into Psalm 19 and verse 3, it says, it's no speech nor language where their voice is not heard, because the Lord has made it to where, this word is easily understood, you see, because it's prophets predominantly in Babylon, America, Babylon the Great, you see, but then it's prophets in other parts of the globe that speak the same languages as, those in those specific areas. All right. So going back, well, let's also we'll get Isaiah chapter 62, and we'll get verse 10. It says, go through the gates, prepare ye the way of the people, cast up the highway, gather out the stones, lift up a standard for the people. And this standard is ultimately being lifted. All right, going into the scriptures. All right, so going back to Psalms 19 and verse 3, it says, "There's no speech nor language where their voice is not heard." Because, again, the standard, the scriptures is ultimately being put forth, as security and stability, for Jake. All right, going back to Isaiah 62 and 6, it says, "I've set watchmen upon thy walls." The Lord sent the prophets ultimately to deliver the message. All right, and again, the prophets speak many different languages, so Jake don't have the opportunity to say, hey, they didn't understand the message that was being spoken. Hey, it's been made plain upon tables. All right, so it says, "There's no speech nor language where their voice is not heard." It says, "Their line is gone out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. In them hath he set a tabernacle for the sun." All right, in which that line goes into those broadbands. All right, I got a picture of it right here. All right, and as we can see, it says how fixed wireless internet works. All right, so these are those lines. All right, and that word goes into qual or quawa. All right, and it says wired connection, which that look like a TV. All right, it's a phone right here. You got a router, you got an antenna, then the high-speed internet signal. This is those broadbands right here, the lines. All right, and it goes from the transmitter, which pretty much pushes forth that broadcast so that the message can be received. All right, in which you got people that use the internet for, bullshit, but the main reason for the internet was to push forth this truth. All right, and which this was prophesied, this was prophesied about before, people in the digital age, started using the internet for whatever they use it for. All right, and just to get that, let's get Romans. It's prophesied about right here, but then I'm going to get another one. This is Romans chapter 10, and we'll get verse 14. And it says, verse 13, Romans 10 and 13, "For whosoever shall call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. How then shall they call on him in whom they have not believed? And how shall they believe in him of whom they have not heard? And how shall they hear without a preacher? And how shall they preach except they be sent? As it is written, how beautiful are the feet of them that preach the gospel of peace and bring glad tidings of good things. But they have not all obeyed the gospel. For Yeshaya saith, Lord, who hath believed our report? So then faith cometh by hearing, and hearing by the word of the Most High." The word of the Most High, essentially was pushed forth on the internet. Verse 18, it says, "But I say, have they not heard? Yes, verily their sound went into all the earth, and their words into the ends of the world." So, and that was Paul, because he was pushing forth the word in the known world. And the known world pretty much consists of what they consider, the so-called Middle East areas, like over by Greece and Turkey and stuff like that. So pretty much that part of the world. So it wasn't talking about then; it was talking about and what's known as now, the digital age, digital age. All right, and again, Paul is pretty much quoting Psalms, the 19th chapter. All right, where it says, verse 4, it says, "Their line is gone out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world." This word has essentially went forth to the end of the world. You see, because where is Jake at? Jake is scattered apart across the four corners of the globe, and Jake gonna come looking like similar to the heathen. All right, because Jake has been scattered, and Jake is also going to be speaking different languages, and again, this word has been made plain upon tables. All right, so Jake don't got an excuse. All right, so going back to verse 4, it says, "Their line is going out through all the earth via those broadbands," all right, with the satellites. It says, "In their word to the end of the world. In them hath he set a tabernacle for the sun." All right, in which, this is twofold, you see, because it says, "In them hath he set a tabernacle for the sun." The actual sun has a tabernacle in the heavens, you see, but then also the Lord Yahweh Shai, first and foremost, the Lord Yahweh Shai is known as the Son of Righteousness, as pursuant to Malachi chapter 4 and verse 2, and we'll get that. Malachi, this is Malachi chapter 4 and verse 2, it says, "But unto you that fear my name shall the Son of Righteousness arise with healing in his wings, and ye shall go forth and grow up as calves of the stall." So the Lord Yahweh Shai is likened unto the Son of Righteousness. All right, so Psalms 19 and verse 4, it says, "In them hath he," or in the latter it says, "In them hath he set a tabernacle for the sun, which is as a bridegroom coming out of his chamber, and rejoiceth as a strong man to run a race." Psalms 19 and 5, which is as a bridegroom coming out of his chamber, and rejoiceth as a strong man to run a race, in which, the bridegroom is talking about the Lord Yahweh Shai. All right. And then also this is twofold, for the actual son, because it says, which is as a bridegroom coming out of his chamber and rejoiceth as a strong man to run a race, and reading down from verse 5 to 6, ultimately, again, it's twofold, you see, because the actual son does go on a circuit. But reading it again, Psalms 19:5, it says, which is as a bridegroom coming out of his chamber and rejoiceth as a strong man to run a race. Hey, this word essentially has again, it had free course. All right. And essentially, it came very intensely, very rapidly. All right. And I'm gonna actually get a precept just going into that. This is Psalms chapter 147, and we'll get verse 15. All right. And it says, he sendeth forth his commandment upon the earth. All right. In which the Lord Yahweh Shai again, all right, is likened unto the Son of Righteousness. All right. And also, going into Psalms 19 and let me see, go back to it. This is Psalms 19:5. It says, which is as a bridegroom coming out of his chamber and rejoiceth as a strong man to run a race. I actually want to get this in the NLT. It says, it bursts forth like a radiant bridegroom after his wedding. It rejoices like a great athlete eager to run a race. Hey, this word has essentially went forth very rapidly. All right, going back to Psalms 147 and verse 15, it says, he sendeth forth his commandment upon earth. His word runneth very swiftly. All right, because again, it said, reading down Psalms 19 and verse 4 says, their line is going out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. In them hath he set a tabernacle for the sun. All right, NLT, I'm going to get this in the NLT. It says, yet their message has gone out throughout the earth. All right, going back to Psalms 147 and 15, it said that pretty much, the commandment went upon the earth. All right, so the words have essentially went upon the earth, you see, because Jake is across the whole globe. All right, finishing this out, Psalms 19 and verse 4, NLT, yet their message has gone throughout the earth, and their words to all the world, because Jake has been scattered. It says the Most High has made a home in the heavens for the sun. All right, which again, that's twofold, because the actual sun has a tabernacle, you see, but then also it's talking about the Lord Yahweh Shai. Verse 5, it says, which is as a bridegroom coming out of his chamber and rejoiceth as a strong man to run a race. That's essentially how this word has went forth, you see. And then also the actual sun, it's like it's on a it's on a course, because when you go into the actual word or the actual letter for the sun, all right, it will like this. That's the modern Hebrew, excuse me. Right here, you have a qua and a pa. All right, but put it in these characters. The sun is qua. All right, and even in the English alphabet, all right, the qua or the Q, excuse me, the Q, all right, has a little tail right there. But if that tail was in the middle, that's what the qua looks like in Hebrew. All right, in which on the right side of that qua on that stick, that will be the east, because the sun rises in the east and then sets in the west. All right, that's why it says right here, verse 6, his going forth is from the end of heaven, and his circuit unto the ends of it, and there is nothing hid from the heat thereof. Let's get this in the NLT. And it says, the sun rises at the one end of the heavens and follows its course to the other end. Nothing can hide from its heat. So the actual sun, it rises from one end of the heavens on the east. All right, the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. It says the sun rises at one end of the heavens and follows its course to the other end. All right, in which that's also likened unto pretty much a race. All right, it says rejoiceth as a again, this is chiefly just talking about the Lord Yahweh Shai, you see, but then also talking about the actual sun. All right, the sun actually rejoices as a strong man to run a race. All right, let me get this in the NLT. It says it bursts forth like a radiant bridegroom after his wedding. It rejoices like a great athlete eager to run a race. So reason being that it goes into that, you see, because when you liken it unto like a track runner, they run around the whole track. All right, so when you take when you take the sun, All right, it has an actual circuit. That's all a track is as well, is a circuit, you know. So the sun, again, it rises in the east and sets in the west. That's why when we get scriptures like this, Ecclesiastes, Quahala, chapter, let me see, chapter 1, and we'll get verse 5. And it says, the sun also ariseth and goeth down and hasteth to his place where he arose. You know, so the sun hasteth. All right, I'm going to get this in the NLT. All right. And it says, the sun rises and the sun sets, then hurries around to rise again. You know, so it's like the sun is racing. All right. And that's ultimately, you know, the sun is also timed. All right. We use the sun as time. You know, that's why they say, oh, high noon, you know, because ultimately the sun changes position every hour. All right. So it's like the sun is running a race. All right. So going back, and again, it's manifold, you see, because the son of righteousness, Yahweh Shai, is likened unto the he is the word, you know. So that this word, again, we got Psalms 147 and 15. Hey, this word has ran very swiftly. All right, and the commandment has went across the four corners of the globe, you see, because essentially the elect is around the whole globe, you know. So essentially this word has again, it had free course. All right, and every Jake is essentially won't have the opportunity to say they didn't hear this word. You see, because the word has went forth free course. All right, so going back to Psalms 19 and verse 5, it says, which is as a bridegroom coming out of his chamber and rejoiceth as a strong man to run a race. It says his going forth is from the end of the heaven, and his circuit unto the ends of it, and there is nothing hid from the heat thereof. It's nothing hid from the heat of the son of righteousness, roughly paraphrasing, you know. So let's get that. I'm gonna get let me see. Nothing is hid from. So when you take this illustration from this Psalms 19 and verse 6, it says his going forth is from the end of the heaven, and his circuit unto the ends of it, and there is nothing hid from the heat thereof. You know, when you take this the sun, all right, the actual sun. All right, and the sun goes from, it rises in the east and it sets in the west. You know, it follows that course. All right, and as the sun rises, all right, it be hot as hell. You know, and that's why it goes into right here. It says, and there is nothing hid from the heat thereof. You see, because when we go into this right here, all right, give me a second. Right here, this is the word for sun, and it says quap, or this is the word. It's related to the word for sun. The word for sun in Hebrew is shamash. All right, but this is a word that has a relation to the word for sun. All right, and it says quap. It says, as the sun travels through the sky, it marks. All right, speaks, commands. It says the times and seasons. See Bara Ashiath, Genesis chapter 1 and verse 14. It says the condensing of the light at the sun when at the horizons. Again, Ecclesiastes 1 and 5. Psalms what was that? Psalms 19 and verse 6. All right. So it says the condensing of the light at the sun when at the horizons, a condensing of milk into curdles. It says a going around of the sun from one horizon to the other. The pictograph qua is a picture of the sun at the horizon. All right, because if you look at this right here, this is a qua. All right, if you went on the right side of this stick that goes from the top to the bottom, that would be the east. All right, so the sun's going to follow, you know, this little C-looking thing, backwards C-looking thing on the right side of that stick. That's going to be the east, and it goes around. All right, and then when it gets to the left side, that's the west. The sun rises in the east and sets in the west. All right, so it says the pictograph qua is a picture of the sun at the horizon. It says the pa is a picture of the mouth. Combined, these mean sun speaks. All right, because the qua is the sun on the horizon, the pa is the mouth. All right, and reason being that I wanted to get that word is because it says his going forth is from the end of the heaven, and his circuit unto the ends of it, and there is nothing hid from the heat thereof. You know, because when the sun rise, it's hot. You know, you can't hide from the sun unless you're going under some shade. But as soon as you leave that shade, you know, it's hot. And even when you in that shade, it still be hot. You know, so nothing can hide from the heat of the sun. All right, and then likening that unto this word. Hey, this word has went forth across the four corners of the globe. You see, so essentially that heat is going to expose. Heat is an exposing substance or element. You see, so the fire from the sun, the fire, the heat from the scriptures. Scriptures say right here, I'm gonna get this real fast. This is Jeremiah chapter 5, and we'll get verse 14. And it says, "Wherefore thus saith the Lord power of hosts, because ye speak this word, behold, I will make my words in thy mouth fire, and this people wood, and it shall devour them." So heat devours. He also, if you was to take heat and to put some type of substance in it, but whether like it's if it was I don't know, like just any type of substance. All right, if something is put into that substance, i.e., gold, silver, you ultimately can see what that precious metal was made of. All right, but if you take something else that will be destroyed in that fire, well, you can see what it was made of. It pretty much exposes, it exposes the substance that is put into it. All right, so when you liken that unto the word, ultimately that this word is exposing the things that's on the wrong side. Ultimately this word exposes those that's not on the correct side of the Lord. That's not right, they're gonna be exposed, by this heat from the scriptures. You see, because the Son speaks. All right, and the Son, all right, going into the scriptures again because it's manifold. All right, that the Son is ultimately speaking, or the Son of Righteousness is ultimately speaking. All right, and this word it has free course. All right, and again it came by way of the internet. All right, in which that was prophesied about in Psalms Tahoyam chapter 19, verses 1 to 6. So I don't want to zaza by night Apollos, that was a beautiful edification through the spirit. While I don't want to zah, I thought Yashlai Allah Tawab as well. You have a good night. Wa shalom, my which is peace to you all. Shalom, shalom.